Yeah.
All right. Well, I am just so excited to be coming to you guys again for another edition of our Create the Ripple Heart Driven. I don't even know what I'm going to call this, Jika. It's been kind of a crazy thing. Funny story before I get too far into this is I was basically gently arm twisted into doing this, even though it's been a passion in my heart. And I share that because a few of the listeners who listen into these things experience me as someone who calls them and say, hey, I have an idea. And they go, oh no, what are we up to now? Right. So it's a little bit amusing for them to see that, I had a friend who was a stand for me and said, I have a network, and that's our Divas That Care network. And thank you to Candace Gish for um, knowing that this was something I really wanted to do and content I wanted to put out into the world. And to that end, for someone who's listening into us, when you like, comment, share, post, subscribe, all of the things, wherever the buttons are, please do that thing, because it means so much to us who are putting the content out into the world when you let us know that what we're doing is providing value, because that's really why we do it, right? I mean, it's a little outside of our
Absolutely.
comfort zone. um,
Yeah.
Nobody necessarily wants to have their butt hanging out there. That's what a girlfriend of mine said the other day. She said, Candace, your butt's kind of hanging out. And I said, I know. But the funny thing is, Jessica, is I feel better about myself and my life when I'm just sort of being like, yeah, this is me and this is the space I'm taking up in the world. And it's been a bit of a journey to get here. So
Hmm.
for those of our, listeners coming in for the first time, leave us some love, share, comment, like, subscribe, and the guest I have on today, we've only recently gotten to know each other, and I've been sort of sharing with our listeners, Jacob, that most of the people I've interviewed have been people I know. So I literally sent them a link and I said, I would love to have you on my podcast, or they're doing something cool in the world, and I said, I want you involved. And you were actually the first one that reached out to me and said, I think what you're doing is cool. I want to be here. So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of a special moment for me because, and I'm putting it out there that if someone else has a story to share, this is a platform that I really want to use to create that space.
Hmm.
And you and I chatted, I think it was last week
Yeah.
at live time. And I think we could have talked for a very long time. We were having a great time chatting. So typically I love it when my guests can come on and share their bio, so to speak, so their introduction. So I'm going to welcome you to do that. And then we'll kind of
Hmm.
see where the conversation goes here kind of organically. So anyway, call is yours, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm glad I got the ball rolling, and I'm the first person that gets to be on your platform that, we don't know each other all that well.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward to getting to know you better, actually.
Thank you.
We live pretty close together.
I know.
So, um, talk about, hanging my butt out there. Last,
That might have to be the title. I never know what I'm going to call these things.
yeah,
And, I'm always looking for that marketing one that'll make people go click. Right now that I want clickbait, but the
yeah.
title of something is important. So for those people who are listening in,
Hmm.
this is about being your authentic self.
Yes. So my journey has been with cancer and healing my body through a surrender practice. And since I have, um, you know, become vitally healthy, I have decided to share that with as many people who are willing to learn about surrendering. And so my butt's been hanging out there, and it's not always comfortable. It really isn't.
Oh,
And so vulnerability has been my middle name ever since I started this surrender practice. And on top of that, I'm really all about tapping into my intuition. And I ask myself and I meditate on it, is this going to be for the greater good? Is this going to benefit my business? Is this going to create more? I just put that out there and it feels light. I do it. And it's not always comfortable. It isn't. No, because of course there are people who are not going to necessarily embrace me for what I do. And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So surrendering is what I'm all about. I'm the queen of surrender. And so to
I love that.
backtrack,
I love that because, I'm a bit of an A-type personality. I think that's what they
uh-huh.
call me. So I really like the illusion of control. I was going to do a Facebook post the other day and I'm like, this is for the, the lack of control. And I was like, in brackets, I know it's an illusion, but sometimes I like living in the illusion that I have some sort of control over what happens. So back to you, our surrender queen.
Yeah. So control, that was kind of my game as well. Not so much controlling that which was out there, more so than the control I had in my inner world. And so I was so, like, in regards to food and exercise and the way I look and the people pleaser and everything, I was a pressure cooker in controlling my behavior, because I realized when I started to put the microscope on myself, when I was, living with cancer and trying to figure out what the heck makes me tick and why is it that I ended up with 2 cancer diagnoses before the age of 50 when I'm not overweight and I'm not a smoker and I'm not a big drinker and I'm, I seem to be doing everything quote unquote right. And so as I put the microscope on myself, I started to really understand the underlying energy of my behavior and how unhealthy it was. And at the core was fear, fear of rejection. And this came about when I was young, in my childhood, which is when most of our limiting beliefs are created and most of our patterns, our habits are formed. And so I had decided that if I was not skinny and if I was not fit and I was not doing what other people wanted me to do, that I would not be loved and I would in fact be rejected. And so this created an eating disorder. This created, I was a workaholic for years because I felt the need to prove myself because I didn't feel worthy, and bending over backwards for other people. And this caused so much dis-ease in my body that eventually it snapped and it created cancer. And the first time I was told the news that you have cancer was in 2007. I was 38 years old. And so I did the Western medicine, chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, hormone therapy, all of that. Didn't want to, but was kind of feared into it. The doctors just gave me the fear tactics. So I went along with it. Then I spent about 10 years, reading a lot of self-help books and doing some retreats and starting to trust and listen. First of all, listen and figure out, my egoic voice versus my intuitive voice, and dissecting the two and listening to it. It took a bit more for me to trust it. But so I learned a fair bit over the 10 years, to the point that I thought, I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm not ever going to end up with cancer anymore. Right. And so a bit cocky. And sure enough, the cancer did return with a vengeance. It eventually became stage 4. I was doing everything under the sun to try and heal my body, not choosing Western medicine this time because my intuition said that is not going to benefit you. So all kinds of alternative ways, and nothing seemed to be working, and the cancer was gaining ground. And when I got the news that the cancer had spread and I had it now in my uterus and in my cervix and in my breast, all female parts, it brought me to my knees. And I finally in meditation said, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what to do anymore. Show me. There was a shift. And I had been told for quite some time, surrender. And up until that point, I'm like, I don't know how to help. Like, how do you surrender? I don't know, right? And the frustration that I felt. Somebody please tell me how to surrender.
I love it. Yes.
And in that moment, I got it. You get it when you get it, right? You get it when you get it. And I got it at that moment. And I started a surrender practice. It was kind of like a meditation practice. I would spend hours and hours every day allowing myself to feel shame, to feel guilt, to feel fear, to feel anger, all of these things that our culture, many cultures around the world, we're not allowed to feel these things, and so we're not taught to feel these things. And so you bury them I swept them under the rug and covered them up with a smile and said to the world, there's nothing going on here. Don't worry about me, right? I'm perfect. And meanwhile, it was a gong show in my inner world. And so I finally allowed myself to feel. I had to teach myself to feel anger and fear and rev it up and realize that that was the way for me to allow it to leave my body, so to speak, because the fear and the anger and the guilt and the shame and everything, they're very low vibrations, as you probably know. And they were stuck in my body, and they were what was causing all the havoc. And so when I finally acknowledged them and told myself, I'm allowed to feel this. It's okay that I'm feeling this. I love you, right? The self-love, I really had to nurture that as well. And I started to feel lighter and lighter and lighter, and in meditation. And then after I would be finished in meditation, which, I was spending 3-4 hours a day at times, allowing myself to feel, and then rising above it, and then, really seeing myself healthy and feeling as if I was already healthy. But then I would get out of my meditation and I would start kind of going back to my, feeling kind of, and whatever, right? And the fear would creep in again. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to set an intention. I want to feel this way always, not just in meditation. I want it to be all day, every day, where I feel this heightened vibration and self-love. And this happened after about 6 weeks. I was in India at a pilgrimage, and out of nowhere, I remember I just kind of opened up my heart chakra, and I all of a sudden felt such tenderness and such gentleness that I had never felt for myself. And the best way for me to explain it is what you would feel for a newborn baby, that kind of tenderness. And it melted my heart. And that has stayed with me. I continue to feel this tenderness. And so it's like I've embodied love. And what such an amazing thing is that I was able to start to feel it for other people, especially those who are not easy to love or not easy to like. I started to feel it for them as well. And I started to feel more compassion and more patience and more, peace. And then another couple of months after that, I went for some tests, and I'm told, you're cancer free. And I just about fell off my chair. I did not see that coming, because all I had been doing, I had pretty much stopped everything because nothing seemed to be working, and it was all super expensive. And we were traveling through Asia. And so other than enemas, I was keeping up on enemas, and the odd thing in Asia, quirky stuff that they do over there. I was really, the biggest thing I was doing was just a surrendering meditation, day in, day out, hours and hours and hours. And I thought, holy cow, this shit works. Like, it physically healed my body. And what a gift. But the biggest gift is this state of being, right? This tenderness, this gentleness, and this peace that I have, that I've uncovered, because it was covered up with all of these limiting beliefs that I had, that I'm not worthy, and I'm not lovable, and I'm not smart enough, and I'm not good enough, and all of these lies. And so many of these lies had to do with being female, is what I also discovered. And I realized that I had taken on a lot of generational stuff down the line from my grandmothers. And of course, they took it on from their mothers and grandmothers. But yeah, all this generational limiting beliefs about being female. And that I needed to prove myself by, the way I looked, by what I did, and how much I worked. Because deep down, my belief was that I wasn't worthy because I was female. And I used plant medicine as well in my journey of healing. And then so one of the ceremonies with ayahuasca, the message that came through was, you are worthy simply because you are born, period. And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female, or black or white, or what you've done or not done, or what kind of job you have, or how much money there is in the bank. None of that matters. It doesn't matter whether you're skinny or overweight. None of that matters. You're worthy simply because you were born. And when I was first told that, I was like, yeah, I know that. I know that. And then when I started to dig deep, I was like, oh, at a subconscious level, I didn't know that. Yeah. So it was quite a journey.
I see that.
Yeah.
I'm really, and I said this on every time I do one of these, is I show up and I have an idea, because of course I ask you guys to fill out a questionnaire, right? So we have some direction for these.
Mm-hmm.
But I also show up with the expectation and the intention to show up, so that, you know, these can sort of take on a mind of their own, right? And you know, be spirit led and that sort of thing. And I'm always intrigued that whatever my guest is talking about is usually exactly what I need to hear, right? I sit there thinking, so I'm doing these because I want to create a platform, and I feel like that's part of the mission, right? Part of
Right.
the idea to create that. And I love it, right? I have a background as an event planner, so that was part of that. So it's sort of an evolution. I think that that's life. And then I also sit here and think, no wonder talk shows are, you know, hosts are so happy all the time. No wonder they're always like, had this look on their face like, wow, because it is the neatest thing. And further to that, like even pulling more of that out of there. And this is something I want to leave my guests with, or the people who are listening in, you know, these are 20 minutes, you know, 25 minutes where I say, in this time, I'm blocking out this time to sit and be present with this person. And we're going to talk about an element or a couple of elements about your life, whether it's whatever you're putting out there into the world, because I know you've got a book and I want you to talk about that, or the program they're launching, or something they're passionate about, or something that they've been thinking about that they just want to get out to the world. One of my last videos was, you know, just a woman who's choosing self-care. Not that she's a self-care coach or anything like that, but that's all we talked about, is how she realized that she wasn't putting herself first. But if I looked at her, I would have said, oh, she's got self-care in there. Then she was like, no, dude, it took this moment, right? This situation, right? I don't even like to give it a name, but we all know that we're here and literally, you know, picked up, dropped in our homes with this sit, heal, stay, right mentality, and what that's bringing up for us. And so I've been considering this concept of surrender for a while, this letting go. And, you know, every time I say letting go, you know, I have a 5-year-old, and so I think, let it go, right? But I laugh at that, because letting go is not giving up. Letting go is about, but that's a big difference. And, you know, for this,
Absolutely.
you know, illusion of control, I like to maintain it feels like giving up. But it's about just, you know, getting in the flow. And so
It's giving up on ego-based reactions. So
is that a fun word?
it is a bit of a giving up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was thinking
Yeah.
about that, because certainly parts of my life right now, you know, there are other people involved in some situations that I'm working my way through. And I've been thinking a lot about, well, what if, you know, I gave up ground on this particular thing? And I think that's probably not the right attitude. That's the giving up attitude versus the, what am I supposed to learn from this, right? And so it's interesting,
Mhm.
because I'm a big proponent of Tony Robbins, who talks about the quality of our life is defined by the questions that we ask ourselves, right? So, you know, if you're feeling like, well, why am I stuck, or why am I here, or why am I sick, your brain's going to give you all of those reasons why that is. But it, you know, the quality of that question that you ask yourself can have a huge impact on the next steps. But let's talk about your book, because I know you've recently written a book.
Right.
And I know that if someone's listening, they're probably saying, I want to know more about your story. So talk to us about the book.
Yes, thank you. So the book is called Healed by Cancer. I realized that cancer wasn't the issue. Cancer was merely a symptom of the diseased way of life that I was leading. And so, Healed by Cancer, it really indicates how grateful I actually am for cancer showing up in my life twice. The first time I didn't quite get it, so I guess I'm a bit slow, but the second time it took until the 11th hour, but I got it.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful, and I'm just so grateful. And so in this book, I go into great detail as to all the areas of my life where I surrendered, where I let go of control. Because the more you try to control something, really, the more out of control you are, right? But the more that you allow something to be, that allowance comes kind of from a different energy, right? The ego is always like, and fearful and whatnot. And when you become really present, and this is what I do in my meditation, but throughout the day, is I tell people, become really present and really aware of you and get to know you. What are your reactions? What are your emotions? How do you speak to people? How's your self-talk? Right? And when you start to pay attention to that, and you start to see patterns, and then ask yourself, is this working for me? Right? Start asking questions. And when you're really present and in the moment, you tap into your intuition, your higher self, because your higher self doesn't reside in the future or in the past. That's where your ego hangs out, right? There's only really this moment. And so I invite people, be really present and tap in and ask yourself those questions. And then what if it's okay? What if it's okay if this happened, or you acted this way, or so you let go of the resistance. And so many things that I was ashamed of, that I regretted, that I was afraid of, I started to have allowance for. And lo and behold, when I felt the allowance, which is really me telling myself, you're allowed to feel this. It's okay that you feel this. I love you. You're shining the light on it. And so the shining the light kind of on the darkness of the anger, let's say, and darkness can't survive in the light. So it starts to dissipate. And so the writing of my book was a big part of my surrender practice, because I had done things that I was ashamed of, and I had secrets that no one knew about. And even my husband didn't know about some of it, and my kids didn't. And my higher self in meditation every once in a while pops up and gives me some powerful messages. And I have learned over the last couple of years to listen and to trust. And no, they're not always comfortable. Often it throws me out there in way out of my comfort zone. I actually sometimes refer to my inner being my inner shit disturber. And so this was one of those times where the message that came through was, write about it, write about your secrets. And I was like, no, nobody needs to know about that, right? Write about it. And so here I had been surrendering, and I'd already healed my body, and obviously there was still enough discomfort, enough shame there that I still didn't want people to know until that message came through. And I thought, all right, I obviously need to spend more time surrendering and loving myself unconditionally, because that's unconditional love means that you're okay with everything about you, especially the shameful bits, the angry bits, the fearful bits, right? Everything about you. And so I started writing about it. And people started the book just came out a couple of months ago, and the amount of comments that I've had from people where they're like, oh my gosh, it's like you wrote my story. Oh my goodness, I could relate to this and I could relate to that. Because I write about my relationship with money, my relationship around, sex, my relationship with my husband, which is unconventional, my relationship with my body image, and my eating disorder that I had for decades. And so basically every area of my life I talk about in my book. And so I am really, truly now an open book and talk about vulnerability. And it takes courage to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I've learned that being willing to be vulnerable is incredibly powerful. And that's where growth is. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I am just honored that you came to share space with me today, because I feel like this is a really powerful message. Um, I am just blown away. Not only that, because, surrender has been something I have been working on. You and I have lots to talk about. And I try to keep these, to a short and sweet, so that, obviously my target is, moms. And so they don't always have a ton of time, but I would love to invite you back, because you and I had some long conversations last time about gender and being women. And I feel like we really just started scratching the surface of this one. So for the listeners, I want them to know that we're going to have all of your details, and your data will be down below, whether they've found us on the Divas That Can Network, or they found us on YouTube or whatever that is, that they'll be able to get in touch with you and to take advantage and order your book and that sort of thing. And I'd love to book you for another one of these, so we can talk specifically about some of these elements, because I feel like today we've talked about surrender.
Right.
So with that in mind, is there a message or a particular thought or something that is on your heart that you'd love to share with, the woman who's listening in right now and is maybe struggling to surrender to something or around something or for something?
I think the biggest thing is to be gentle with yourself, be patient with yourself, and to keep telling yourself, it's okay that I'm angry. It's okay that I'm reacting. It's okay that I'm emotional. It's okay that, my kids are driving me crazy, or I'm stressed about money, or, and to be the watcher, to be the witness of your reactions, of your emotions, of your words, and to keep being okay with it without judging. And this is really the first step, is nurturing yourself and being gentler with yourself. And then as you continue on and you you fine tune this, you start to feel, my favorite word is freedom. And that feeling of freedom, and it's in all areas of freedom, with my health, with finances, with relationships, with everything. There's a freedom, and it's a beautiful thing. As a matter of fact, I have a Facebook group, and it's called Freedom, your Surrender, your ticket to freedom. And it's if I can do it, anyone can do it. We all can tap into that. We all have the ability to surrender, but it's about taking the ego out of the driver's seat, because the ego resists everything, because it's fear-based. So if we can take the ego out of the driver's seat and into the back seat, or even into the trunk, and start to be more aware, more present, listen and follow our intuition, it's going to make a huge difference. And as you mentioned, many of the women are moms. When we start to nurture ourselves, we become an amazing example to our children, because the children mimic us. And so this is not just healing yourself, this is healing to everyone around us. It's powerful. Surrendering is really powerful. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jaka. I really appreciate you taking time out today to hold space with me as well, and to share this. And for our listeners, we will have Jaka back to talk about this. I'm smiling because everybody I've talked to, I've been like, we need we need more of this. And isn't it great that we have platforms that let us do this and communicate? And it's funny because I knew they were out there, and it took something like the situations that we're in right now to
Mm-hmm.
drive us online, to make us realize that this was possible. This kind of connection is possible. So I wanted to say a big, huge thank you. Congratulations on, that surrender process and the courage that you found to share that in a way that we can grasp and learn from and grow from as well. So thank you for taking the
Thank
time to do
you.
that. You're
Thank you very
welcome.
much. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to our future chats.
Oh, we're gonna book that for the listeners. We are definitely booking it as soon as I'm hitting pause on this one.
Perfect.
Yes, absolutely. So
I'm
again,
in.
yeah, perfect. So you heard it right here. So for our listeners, again, if you got value out of this, like, comment, share, love, subscribe. It really does matter. It is such an easy way for us to know that what we're doing has value. And of course, again, all of the information you need to connect with myself or with Jake or any of the divas that I've interviewed over the last few weeks, they're always down below. And we welcome you to reach out to us so that we can connect. Again, thank you to our hosts platform, the Divas That Care. And Candice Gish, thank you so much for being brave enough to put that out into the world so that we could do this together. So keep an eye out. Make sure you subscribe, follow along so you know when I post out new content, and we will talk to you guys again soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.